I want a better life for my family. What's next?
I'm looking to better my career. What's next?
I just graduated from high school. What's next?
I dropped out of high school. What's next?
I'm the first in my family to go to college. What's next?
I just lost my job. What's next?
I just got out of the military. What's next?
I've just been released from prison. What's next?
I don't know what's next for me.
Don't know what's next for you? Join me, Dr. Rene Cintron, on the What's Next Louisiana podcast and discover the possibilities with Louisiana's community and technical colleges. Welcome back to the What's Next Louisiana podcast, a podcast brought to you by Louisiana's community and technical colleges. The purpose of this podcast is to inform and inspire you. If you're looking for a change in career or trying to learn more about what career options are available across the state, this is the podcast for you. As we have been focusing on the student experience, we're going to take a deep dive at the importance of self-care in this episode. And with me, I have the pleasure of speaking with a group of people. But first, I want to introduce Dr. Christy Montgomery, who is with Northshore Technical Community College and is the Vice Chancellor of Student Affairs, Diversity and Inclusion. How are you, Dr. Montgomery?
I'm doing great, Renee, and thank you so much for having me today. As you said, I'm Dr. Christy Montgomery, Vice Chancellor of Student Affairs, Diversity and Inclusion at Northshore Technical Community College. I have been with Northshore going on 8 wonderful years, and I've served in various roles during that time. Prior to coming to Northshore, I served as a licensed professional counselor at a college in their student services department. So I spent a lot of time one-on-one with students, just kind of talking through challenges. I am a licensed professional counselor in the state of Louisiana. And then from there, I was the assistant director of transition programs and leadership at Xavier University for a while, just working with students on leadership skills, and I'm working with student organizations. So the majority of my career has been in higher education, and I thoroughly enjoy just seeing students grow. In my current role, I'm responsible for just leading our students forward as a part of the Louisiana Community and Technical College system. We are challenged to work with students no matter what level they're on, whatever their challenges are, and kind of meet them where they are. And so through student services and admissions, financial aid, disability services, career services, student activities, even things like our just recruiting efforts, all of that is I'm charged to lead those groups and making sure that we are meeting the needs of the students in the communities that we serve. We are a 6 locations in our college. And so we have a very wide reach, and I'm so excited to be here and kind of share some of my experiences and things that I've learned from the students that we serve in our system.
Well, thank you very much for taking the time. I know that our students face many challenges, and you mentioned helping students through to graduation, to completion, and you mentioned a lot of the things and support that you have on campus. But I want to ask you, from your experience, and you see students on a daily basis, what are some of the challenges outside of the classroom that students face as they try to complete courses, as they try to complete programs? What are some of those challenges?
Yeah, so typically when I see a student that I'm working with that is having any sort of a challenge, whether it's a mental health challenge or a behavioral challenge, or they're just needing assistance, there's always some sort of external factor that is impacting that. Quite consistently, we see finances as a challenge, even though many of our students do qualify for things like financial aid and student loans. There's still a challenge financially because many of them are having to use those funds, yes, to help with their education, but also to help pay bills. Many of them are struggling in their home lives when it comes to those financial burdens. So definitely there are financial challenges. We also see that students come into our campuses with no support, or many of them first generation college students. So it's not that the family or the community does not want to support them. Many times their community does not know how to support them. And so many of them come in really struggling to navigate the college experience and really feeling intimidated by the college setting. So it's almost like they walk into the door saying, I'm not gonna make it, or I can't do this, because they have not received that adequate preparation for this type of setting. And some of the other challenges we're finding is, mental health is a huge challenge. Many of our students deal with some sort of anxiety. Some of them are dealing with things like depression. Some of them, home is not a easy place for them to be in. And some of them are using the college experience as an escape to get away from their home life and different challenges that they're experiencing. All of those things spill into the classroom. It will spill into their performance. And so those become things that we have to kind of help support and help them navigate through. Then when you add a pandemic on top of that, and you also add a dash of the social injustice and all the different things that we're seeing across our nation with all of the challenges we've had over the past year or so, that creates a completely different level of angst and anxiety that students are bringing to the table, that we are now having to be creative with the ways that we navigate and the ways that we support students now, because there's so many other triggers that are really causing students to kind of struggle a bit academically. So one thing that I always share with my team is, when we see a student struggling, we don't look at the just the coursework to say, oh, they're just struggling with math. We also look to see if there's a root trigger for that, if there are some surrounding issues, and we can typically point to them not being able to juggle all of the things that they have going on. We have single parents coming in our classrooms. We have individuals who are taking care of their family members coming in, and they have a lot of pressures on them and are coming into our classes trying to focus on learning when there's so many other external barriers, mental health issues that are going untreated with no medication and no therapy. It's very difficult for those students to then come in and really reach their full potential in the classroom. So those are all things that we have to constantly look for and try to make sure, and we're doing this across the system. That's why we're constantly talking about a different initiative or a different program or a different position that we need or a different task force that we need, because every year it seems that the needs of our students and the challenges that they face continue to grow by the second.
And I think it's very important, like you said, to look beyond what's happening in the classroom. If it's not just the math that is a struggle, there are many other things. And you said a couple of words I want to ping back, and it's support and navigate. That is important. And can you give us a brief explanation of what do you do? I mean, you mentioned very broadly about helping them in this, but give me an example of maybe a success story of a student that you recognized who was struggling, and it was something that was not academic related, but it trickled in, right? Like you said, it trickled into their coursework. Can you tell us a success story or student story about that?
Sure. I can tell you that there's been so many situations like this that we can speak to. But I do know one student in particular. When I was a student services coordinator at our Hammond campus, there was a student who I was working with. She was in our business office program. She was very rough around the edges, and she had never experienced, she had children, she had raised her children, and now she was finally getting to a place where she wanted to do something for herself. And that's the story of many of our students, where they will raise families and have some sort of a career and decide, I want to do something different. I finally want to achieve my passion. So she was coming into the business program. She had not really received a whole lot of training as far as professionalism and those types of things. So we really poured into her, not just myself, but the entire office, the campus administration really saw potential in the student and poured into her, working with her on professionalism, encouraged her to apply for a student worker job. So then she became a part of our campus culture. Before we knew it, she was running for student government and became a student government leader, and was one of the best leaders that we have had come out of that campus. And I'll never forget when she was getting ready to graduate, she came running in one day saying that she had gotten a job, and she was super excited. That was the first professional setting that that she had worked in before. And she said to me, and it really hit home for me, now I can afford to purchase a mirror for my bathroom. And I remember being excited for her for getting that job, but all of those years working with her, it didn't dawn on me or really hit me what her home life was really like. And from that conversation, just talking about how excited she was to be able to purchase a mirror in her restroom so that she could really check herself and make sure, that her clothes looked appropriate and that her hair was appropriate and all of these different things, it really helped me to see the level of impact that we had made for this young woman, because she had been living in some very challenging situations and had learned to come to class, to come to work, to smile through it, to be professional through it. And then she was able to get some skills that would allow her to be able to stand on her own 2 feet and be proud of that accomplishment. So that was a very impactful moment for me, because I never would have known that unless we had that type of relationship. But it also helped me to really make sure that we continue to look past the surface, because there are going to be some situations where we don't have that student that's motivated to come every day. We don't have that student who's motivated to look past all of those challenges. And we have to be able to identify that and kind of become that push for them. And I tell my team all the time, some students you can just push, but some students you have to almost put your foot in their back and make sure that they don't stop moving forward. And so she's definitely one that I'm extremely proud of and excited. And we have so many other stories that I could share, but that's one that directly made an impact on me.
Thank you for sharing that experience with Northshore Technical Community College, and it multiplies. There's so many students across the system that not only need your specific help and support in navigating the coursework and college, but there's also community organizations that help and support not just the students, but just our community as a whole. And we have a couple of guests here from Wellspring Alliance that are going to join our conversation. I'm going to introduce you. This is going to be fun. We just had a conversation with Dr. Christy Montgomery from Northshore Technical Community College. And here we have Christy Montgomery, coordinator of high-risk teens with Wellspring. No kidding, no lying. 2 Christy Montgomerys in one episode won't happen anywhere else. Christy, how are you? Can you tell us a little bit about you, what you do, what Wellspring's about? And then we go over to our second guest, who's Sophia Dixon Brown, who is the managing attorney over legal services programs with the Family Justice Center. So we'll start with Christy. We'll start with you, and then we'll turn it over to Sophia.
Okay, thank you, Rene. Thank you for having us. Again, I'm Christy Montgomery, and I do work for the Wellspring. I am the coordinator of the high-risk teams here, and I've been working with the Wellspring for over 13 years. The Wellspring, for anyone that may not be aware, we are a nonprofit organization that offers a lot of different services for a lot of different needs. We have homeless services. We have homeless services for veterans. We have a huge domestic violence program. We offer empowerment to students. So there's just a wide range of things that we do. That's just a very small portion of some of the items, but specifically what I do and what I work with are those individuals in some of our rural communities. And let me back up and say, the Wellspring Alliance serves all of Northeast Louisiana and some of Central Louisiana as well. So we spread very far and wide across the state and serving in a lot of capacities. We are a domestic violence and sexual assault center. for our region in the state of Louisiana, and we're recognized as that. But again, back to what I do, I work specifically with individuals that are in extremely dangerous situations. I've had the opportunity over the years to work in a lot of different positions, and I've had the opportunity to sit hand in hand with a lot of individuals that are going through very difficult times in their lives. Right now, I have the opportunity to work very closely with community partners to be able to identify those individuals that are in very violent relationships, that are in very terrible situations. And we serve men, women, children, adults of all ages. So there's no specific area, there's no specific gender that we are serving in this capacity. We see everyone. We see people in every walk of life. And we do encounter a lot of individuals that are in school and that are in some of the situations in which Dr. Montgomery talked about a while ago. You know, we are very fortunate to be able to take time and to work with individuals that come into our office. They may call, they may come by seeking help. We may get a referral from a professor there within the school system. So we're receiving referrals from all different entities. And once we get that information, then we can talk to you more about what we can do to better provide services for you, what we can do to assist you, to keep you safe. Safety is our first and foremost priority. And one of the big things that we believe is that your future should not include fear. And for so many, fear is a reality, and it's affecting work. It's affecting their school. It's affecting their ability to be able to be productive in their employment. And so what we want to be able to do when we serve someone is to be able to talk with them about their situation, talk with them about abuse and what that looks like. For so many, they're in the relationships and they're not sure if that particular relationship is abusive because it's not physical. And you know what? It doesn't have to be physical to be abusive. You know, domestic violence includes emotional abuse. It includes financial abuse. It includes sexual abuse, as well as the physical abuse. There's so many different facets of it. And it's important for us to be able to sit hand in hand with these individuals and to be able to talk about their situation and help them see that the relationship that they're in may or may not be healthy. And if not, what is our next step? What is your next step? The biggest thing for someone that's in a relationship like this is to understand that it's not your fault. It's not. There's nothing that you can do to cause anyone to do these types of things to you. And so we just want to be able to have that opportunity to talk about the signs of abuse, to talk about what your steps are and what your options are, and to be able to provide those for you.
Thank you very much, Christy, for that. I have a couple of questions, but I'm gonna hold them for a minute and let Sophia Dixon Brown, who is an attorney with the Family Justice Center, to tell us a little bit about what you do, what your role is, some of the support and assistance that you give, it's not just students, but anyone in the community.
Okay, thank you so much, Rene, for having me. What I do as the managing attorney is all of the referrals that we get from within the agency and from our partners, they start with me. I determine whether that person is eligible for our services, and then I assign those individuals to one of our attorneys. I do myself have a caseload, and then we assist that individual with anything that arises out of the domestic violence. It could be a divorce, it could be custody, child support, spousal support. We do property settlements. We can represent them in protective order court. Just anything that arises out of the domestic violence. It can be evictions as well. And so it can be challenging, but we try to assist them, like I said, with anything that has to deal with the domestic violence.
Great, thank you for that. You know, these events are surely distracting, more than just damaging. They're definitely distracting to one's path. So Christy a minute ago mentioned referrals, and Sophia, you mentioned too. So I want to stay with you, Sophia. How does somebody reach Wellspring? What would be the first step someone that would like or need your support and your navigation do? Where would they go?
They can contact any of our partners. They can contact the Family Justice Center directly, which is part of the Wellspring Alliance for Families. Once they contact us, they meet with one of the case managers. They indicate to the case manager exactly what it is that they need assistance with. If they need legal services, then the case manager would send their information to us. And then once they are approved for our services, then we would send them correspondence directly letting them know that they have been approved for legal services. And then we go from there. We also take referrals. It may be from another agency in the community indicating that that person may need our assistance. And then we basically go through the same process. There is, we have to make sure, first of all, that there's no conflict where we may have, because I've been practicing for quite a long time, and so has the other members of the legal staff. And so we have to first make sure that there is no legal conflict, because we want to keep our license. We don't want to have any ethical violations. And then once we determine that, and it's rare that there is a conflict, and then once that happens, we try to assist them with those legal issues that they need assistance with, whether it be a divorce or custody. And mostly it's family law, a lot, and mostly it's custody, where the perpetrator tries to use the children to actually abuse that survivor more by taking their children from them. And so mostly it's family law and a lot of custody.
Thank you for that explanation, Sophia. I really appreciate that. I've got a better understanding of how someone can get to you and what the steps might be once they reach you and the services that you provide. Christy, I want to go back to a couple of things that you said, because you mentioned various services from domestic violence that Sophia was just talking about, but also homelessness, veteran support. What are some of the other services, not that just you provide, because I know you have North Louisiana and Central Louisiana, but there are other organizations like yours all over the state. Can you talk a little bit about that, about the other organizations, other support services? How does someone get in touch? What would be the next step someone could take, and something like that to that effect? Christy, if you will.
Sure. There are so many services that our communities are so fortunate to have. And, if you have a need and you're not really sure who can help, one suggestion I have is to contact United Way. United Way is a great resource that you can contact. It's an information line, and you can reach them simply by dialing 211. And by calling that number, you can let them know what your situation is, and they can help connect you with a service provider to assist you with that particular need. So you may be in your community and wondering who can help you with that particular issue. Contact United Way, contact one of your other agencies, and see if they can help point you in the right direction. We get calls periodically for that type of thing, and we're happy to assist and happy to help find you the source of help that we can for that particular need.
Thank you for that. Yeah, 211 is an excellent resource. Like you said, with the United Way, with other resources that are out there. That's a great piece of information. Christy, thank you for sharing that. I want to go around the room, because since we're talking about the importance of self-care, we've talked a lot about, once the issue occurs or the challenge begins, but let's maybe go around the room. Let's start with you, Dr. Montgomery. What are some of the things that students could do to take care of themselves, maybe before they get stressed out about the exam, or maybe before something happened? I know a lot of times we can't predict what's going to happen in the future, but what are some of the things that you would suggest to students do for self-care?
Sure. One of the things that we always talk to our students about is utilizing the resources that we offer through the college. Sometimes the first step in self-care is verbalizing that there is an issue or that there is a challenge, because many times that concern comes about because students are trying to tackle a challenge without any level of support. And there's usually something available to assist that student that would help them to navigate whatever that challenge may be, whether it's a home-related situation, outside of college or inside the college setting that they need support. There's typically something or some way that we can point or direction we can point them to support them. So just verbalizing what those challenges are. I always encourage students to really know themselves and to know what their trigger points are, know what those triggers are, identify those triggers. We also talk to our students about different success tips. One of the things that we do at Northshore Technical Community College is we have a success series where at least twice a month, we're giving students tips on things like managing test anxiety and how to just manage anxiety or stress in general. You know, how to have difficult conversations, you know, how to keep a positive attitude, just different things that will help them to be mindful of the way that they're thinking about things, their approach to different matters, to make sure that they're always trying to stay in a positive view and always reconnecting them to local resources that will help support them in those areas. So I think for me, the most important thing for students is not being fearful and hesitant to verbalize when there's a support need. And for our college settings, if they don't know where to go, stopping by admissions or student services and we can point you in the right direction, whether it's to an agency in the community or something that we offer through the college. And I find that usually when a student is sitting in front of me because of a conduct issue, because they blew up about something that they weren't sharing what the challenge was. It basically, when it gets to the end result, and I started to have the conversation with them to try to backtrack to see what led to it, there was something that happened way early on that if we had intervened at that time, we could have prevented all of the behavioral issues or all of the challenges that happened after that. So one of the things from orientation, from the moment we start to engage with students, we stress communication and not being fearful or ashamed to express that you need help. That's probably the most valuable piece of self-care that a college student could do, is to be honest and communicate what the challenges are so that we can help support them through it.
Thank you, Dr. Montgomery. That was very insightful, especially about the triggers and learning about yourself and what could potentially be your, like you said, your trigger that acts as the precursor for something that comes later, whether it's studying for a test or something that's happening at home. It's important to recognize those things. Christy, anything from the Wellspring perspective to add to this?
Actually, Dr. Montgomery said exactly the answer I would have given as well. And also in addition to the school setting and the individuals that you can trust there, if no one else, find a friend, find a peer that you feel like you can trust, that you feel like is trustworthy and dependable, and that is going to have your best interest at heart. And the biggest first step, as far as I am concerned, is just realizing that there's a problem and there's a need. And once you do that, then allow others the opportunity to help you in whatever it is that you're going through. So I think that support system is huge, it's vital, and it's so important in the healing process and moving forward in dealing with whatever it is you may be going through. Excellent.
Thank you for that. Having the support network, it is very important. And as Dr. Montgomery was mentioning at North Shore Technical Community College, but that's true to all of our other institutions. There is that network of friends, and maybe it's the Student Government Association as a fellow students. The SGA can provide some support and assistance. Sophia, what are your thoughts on self-care? What would you recommend folks to do in order to self-care?
Well, first I would say you have to be your own cheerleader. You have to expect the best for yourself. And if you expect the best for yourself, then you're not accepting someone treating you abusively whether it be physically or whether it be emotionally. And part of what I always want to say to individuals is stay in school. A lot of the individuals that we represent may have dropped out of school in junior high or high school. And so they're dependent on their perpetrator financially. They can't go out and get a job because they've had children young. They may have several children, and they may not be financially stable enough, they feel, to go out on their own. And so they're depending on that abuser. Well, if you're your own cheerleader, then you're not going to accept that abuse. You're going to stay in school no matter what anybody says. You're going to not accept that first time somebody pushes you. You're not going to accept that first time someone hits you. And, you know, if they stay in school, they can get a job and they'll be able to take care of the children that they have eventually. And if they find themselves in an abusive relationship, then it'll be easier for them to leave. But my number one advice to them is be your own cheerleader, expect the best. And if someone tries to abuse you, then be confident enough in yourself to leave that relationship immediately.
Thank you, Sophia. I really like that advice of being your own cheerleader and thinking the best of you and being able to do and thinking that you're able to do better. That is excellent. And staying in school is important. I should mention that to attend one of the Louisiana community and technical colleges across the state for general admissions, a high school diploma is not necessary. So you can start the college here in one of our 12 institutions having not completed the high school diploma, and we can help you complete the high school diploma if that's something that you didn't finish when you were younger, and now you're a little bit seasoned. I'm not going to say old, but I just said it. But you know, you're a little bit seasoned, and now you want to come back to school, and it's okay to go to college and without the high school diploma. If you have it, welcome as well. It's very good to hear from you three. I really appreciate you taking the time to speak with me about the importance of self-care and what some of the resources that exist for the community and specifically for our students. Thank you all very much. Here in the episode, Dr. Christy Montgomery, who's the Vice Chancellor of Student Affairs, Diversity and Inclusion at Northshore Technical Community College. The Christy Montgomery of Wellspring, who is the coordinator of high-risk teams. Amazing that this just happened by coincidence. We have two Christy Montgomerys in one episode. I can't be any more thrilled about that. We debated. There might be some confusion, but you know what? We went with it. And the one and only on the episode, Sophia Dixon Brown, managing attorney at the Family Justice Center. Thank you all very much for being here. I really appreciate y'all taking the time and speaking about this important topic. I want to give you all one more chance to go around the room. Any last thoughts, any last piece of advice? I usually ask the guests, what's next for you, for your organization, for anything, because that's the title of our podcast. What's next, Louisiana? So what would you say for what's next to yourself or to your organization or to someone else that's listening? Sophia, we'll start with you.
I would just say to your listeners to understand that it's not okay to be abused. And if you find yourself in that relationship, please get out, because it is getting more dangerous every day. And so do what's best for you. And if you have children, for them to get out of that relationship sooner rather than later.
Thank you, Sophia. Christy?
I would say, first and foremost, just know that you're worth it. You're worth the change. You're worth being better. You're worth whatever it is that you feel is necessary for your life. Like Sophia said, if you're going through a difficult time with abuse, know that there are options. Know that there are people that want to be there with you and for you and want to support you. And so I encourage you to reach out for help. Again, love should not have to hurt, and you should not have to fear your future. So know that you are worth it, and we are here to help you.
Thank you, Christy. Dr. Montgomery, any last piece of advice? What's next for us?
I would say for me, when thinking about what's next, it's the finish line. no matter what those challenges are, no matter what is going on in your personal life or in your academic aspirations, the next step is the finish line. So whatever it takes to get there, whatever support you need to get there, we are available for you. We are here to support you. But the only acceptable goal is to reach the finish line. And like I always tell our students, I won't accept anything else other than completion or transfer. You got to finish what you start. And so just taking that next step, even though it's challenging, take the next step and you'll look up and you're at the finish line. So that's what's next, the finish line.
That is excellent. And what a good transition, Dr. Montgomery, because here we are at the finish line. We started our episode on a very important and delicate topic, and I really appreciate y'all taking the time and giving your expertise and advice. And here we are at the finish line. If you want to know more about these episodes, you can find them on our website, lctcs.edu/whatsnextla. If you want to reach us directly, you can send us an email at whatsnextlouisiana@lctcs.edu. And of course, if you want to know more about our colleges, you can visit the system website, lctcs.edu. Thank you all for listening. My name is Rene Cintron, and it's a pleasure to be here with the What's Next Louisiana podcast. Before we wrap things up, we want to take the time at the end of each episode to answer some questions from our listeners. If you have a question you would like us to answer, email us, whatsnextlouisiana@lctcs.edu. You can visit us online at lctcs.edu/whatsnextla or tweet us at GoLCTCS. A special thanks to the What's Next Louisiana podcast team. Aquina Grant, LCTCS Director of Communications. Landon Corbin, LCTCS Coordinator of Digital Outreach. April Smith, Northshore Technical Community College, Livingston Campus Dean. Jason Leader, Nunes Community College, Director of Communications. Darian Atkins, Louisiana Delta Community College, Director of Community and Public Relations. Until next time, I'm Dr. Rene Cintron asking you, what's next, Louisiana?